Hello everyone. I'm Cecilia, and today I'll be presenting on a topic that feels increasingly urgent in modern universities, what I call the pedagogical paradox. As education becomes more digital, we're promised efficiency, personalization, and access like never before. But at what cost? My presentation explores a tension between two powerful forces in today's higher education landscape: cognitive agency, or the student's ability to think independently, versus digital control, where learning systems and AI subtly reshape how we think, behave, and even define success. Through theory, experience, and examples, I hope to uncover how we might reclaim our role as true learners in a digitally governed classroom. So let's start by looking closely at what I call the central paradox in digital higher education. Today, two powerful technologies, generative AI and learning management systems, or LMS, are deeply transforming how students learn. On one hand, they promise to make education more accessible, personalized, and efficient. For busy learners like myself, tools like ChatGPT offer immediate answers and summarize readings in seconds. LMS dashboards help us track assignments and stay organized. But these benefits come with hidden trade-offs. As we rely more on AI, we risk outsourcing our thinking, skipping the slow, effortful process of analyzing, questioning, and synthesizing information. Similarly, LMS platforms, with their metrics, deadlines, and login trackers, often shift our motivation from genuine curiosity to strategic compliance. So here lies the paradox. Are these tools empowering us to be better learners? Or are they subtly controlling how we think, behave, and succeed in university? This tension between cognitive agency and digital control is the heart of my presentation. I'll explore how this plays out not just in theory, but in real classrooms, including my own experience as a working student navigating these systems. Let me begin with the first challenge: AI and cognitive offloading. As a working adult juggling family, full-time responsibilities, and postgraduate studies, time has become my most limited resource. To cope, I often find myself using AI tools like ChatGPT not just as assistants, but almost as shortcuts. I've relied on them to summarize dense readings or even generate outlines, especially when deadlines are tight. While this might seem efficient, it actually disrupts the deeper learning process. According to Barry Zimmerman's model of self-regulated learning, effective learning happens in three cyclical phases: forethought, performance, and self-reflection. But when I let AI plan my work or do the cognitive heavy lifting, each phase is affected. In the forethought phase, I skip goal setting and planning, I just ask the AI what to write. In the performance phase, instead of struggling with content, I'm editing AI-generated text. And in the reflection phase, my self-assessment is focused on whether the output sounds right, rather than whether I've truly understood anything. This is what researchers call cognitive offloading, the habit of outsourcing mental effort to external tools. While helpful in moderation, overuse can erode metacognitive engagement and lead to passive learning. And in my case, it's not about laziness, it's survival. But that's precisely the danger. As this behavior becomes normalized, we risk raising a generation of students who are efficient, but not intellectually autonomous. If AI affects how we think, then the learning management system, or LMS, shapes how we behave. We log in, we see the dashboard, we check our submissions, our activity logs, our progress bars. It all looks like support. But over time, I began to feel something else: surveillance. And that reminded me of Foucault's idea of the panopticon. Originally, the panopticon was a prison design where a single guard could observe all prisoners from a central tower, but the prisoners couldn't see the guard. Because they might be watched at any moment, they started regulating their own behavior. It wasn't force that kept them in line, it was the constant possibility of being observed. That's exactly what our LMS does. No one is looking at every click, every forum post, or every delay, but the system records it all. And because we know it's recorded, we start changing how we act. We respond to posts not because we're curious, but because we want to appear active. We submit early not because we're ready, but to avoid late penalties or system flags. Over time, Our learning becomes about performing visibility, not developing insight. Researchers call this data-driven performativity when students tailor their actions to fit what the system values, rather than what real learning requires. And Shoshana Zuboff takes this even further. She explains that all of this behavioral data, our clicks, patterns, and study habits, becomes behavioral surplus. It's extracted and monetized, not necessarily to help us, but to feed algorithms, institutions, and platforms that benefit from prediction and control. So what began as a tool for learning ends up shaping behavior and sometimes profiting from it. So what happens when both these forces, AI and LMS, work together in the background of our learning? On the inside, AI starts to erode our cognitive agency. We rely on it to generate, decide, and even evaluate. Over time, we stop noticing how much thinking we've outsourced. On the outside, the LMS shapes our behavioral choices. We begin to act not out of personal curiosity or reflection, but based on what the system expects to see: clicks, submissions, logins, replies. Together, these pressures chip away at something essential: our autonomy as learners. We become more efficient, yes, but also more passive. We perform the system. And in that process, we risk losing the core of what higher education is meant to nurture: the ability to think for ourselves, to struggle with ideas, and to own our learning journey. If AI has the power to disrupt how we think, then it also holds the potential to rebuild that process if we shift the way we use it. Instead of treating AI like a shortcut that delivers polished answers, we can treat it as a sparring partner, something that challenges us, not replaces us. For example, imagine prompting AI to defend a controversial idea. Instead of copying its response, your task is to rebut it, to find flaws in the logic, question the assumptions, and build a stronger counterargument. This transforms the learning process. Suddenly, you're back in Zimmerman's self-regulated learning cycle. You begin with forethought by designing a thoughtful prompt with a clear purpose. You move into performance by analyzing, questioning, and constructing your own reasoning. And finally, you engage in self-reflection by comparing your response with the AI's and asking, what did I miss? What did I see that the AI didn't? Now, instead of offloading your thinking, you're exercising it. You're not using AI to answer for you, you're using it to sharpen your thinking. That's how we bring agency back into the learning process, by choosing to work with technology, not under it. So far, we've seen how AI can displace thinking and how LMS platforms can quietly shape our behavior. But what if these systems could be redesigned? What if, instead of watching us, they could talk to us? Imagine a dashboard that doesn't just show how many times you logged in, but asks you something meaningful. You tend to study late at night, how is that affecting your focus? You've rewatched this lecture multiple times, is there a concept that's still unclear? These kinds of reflective prompts turn learning analytics into a mirror, not a gaze. A space for personal insight, not performance. But here's the deeper issue. As Zuboff explains in her theory of surveillance capitalism, the real concern isn't just that we're being tracked, it's that our behavior is being turned into a commodity. She calls it behavioral surplus, all that extra data we generate through our actions. In a learning system, that includes how long we stay on a page, when we log in, how fast we type, and more. This data isn't just used to support us, it's sometimes used to predict, influence, or even profit from us. So when we talk about redesigning learning analytics, it's not just a technical fix, it's an ethical one. We need transparency, students should know what's being collected and why. We need control, students should decide what data is used, and how. And most importantly, we need purpose. The goal should be to empower reflection, not extract compliance. That's how we shift the system from surveillance to support, from prediction to personal growth. All of this might sound theoretical, but I've lived it. In one of our courses, we had weekly discussion prompts meant to spark dialogue. But week after week, participation was minimal. One day, a new student finally asked, "Why is no one engaging here?" Another student replied, very honestly, "Because it's not graded." That moment stayed with me. It captured something we all felt but never said out loud. The LMS might ask for engagement, but it subtly trains us to care more about visibility than depth. And it doesn't stop there. Tutorials often drift away from genuine exploration of ideas and become decoding sessions for the rubric. Instead of discussing what we're learning, we ask, what does the lecturer want? What do I need to write to hit the marks? That shift from inquiry to performance is exactly what this paradox produces. It's not that students don't care. It's that the system rewards strategic compliance more than authentic learning. And when that happens, we lose something precious, the joy of thinking for its own sake. There's one more thing we need to confront, and it sits at the very heart of this paradox. When Michel Foucault described the panopticon, he showed us how people internalize control when they feel watched. But Shoshana Zuboff pushes this further. She shows us how that watching becomes a business model. This is where it gets dangerous. The LMS doesn't just track behavior to keep students on task. It collects behavioral data, study habits, clicks, scrolls, and turns them into behavioral surplus. That surplus is analyzed, optimized, sometimes even sold. Not to support our learning, but to predict, to influence, and to profit. And just like that, the university shifts from being a space for inquiry to a marketplace of prediction. This is no longer just a question of pedagogy. It's a question of power. Which means our response must go beyond better tools. It must ask, what kind of university do we want to belong to? One shaped by data or one shaped by purpose? So where does all of this leave us? Let's be clear, technology itself is not the enemy. AI, LMS platforms, dashboards, they're not bad. They're powerful. They're here to stay. But that's exactly why we must be more intentional with how we use them. Because technology is not neutral. Every digital tool reflects certain values. And if we're not careful, those values like efficiency, speed, visibility will start to replace the deeper ones that education is meant to protect: autonomy, agency, and critical thought. That's why pedagogy must guide design, not the other way around. We can't let systems train students to perform instead of think. We can't allow platforms to reward compliance over reflection. And we can't afford to hand over the core of learning, the struggle, the questioning, the discovery, to algorithms. This presentation isn't just a critique. It's a reminder. A call to pause and ask, are we still the ones doing the learning, or are we just managing tools that learn for us? The future of higher education will not be defined by how well we adopt technology, but by how bravely we defend what learning should feel like. Human, intentional, reflective, and free. It's time to bring the learner, not the platform, back to the center. We've reached the end, but not the solution. In this new university landscape, we are no longer just students. We are data points, tracked and nudged. We are writers who don't write, thinkers who don't think, because the system says faster is better, completion is success, and efficiency is learning. But here's what I've learned. Learning is not a task to complete. It's a right to reclaim. When AI writes for us and LMS tracks us, we risk becoming products of a system that values output over understanding. But we are not passive nodes in a digital machine. We are cognitive agents capable of forethought, performance, and self-reflection, as Zimmerman reminds us. And these capacities don't disappear. They just get buried under convenience, pressure, and silence. So this is not just a critique. It's a call. Let us use AI as a mirror, not a mask. Let LMS serve reflection, not control. Let pedagogy lead technology, not the other way around. Because in the end, the learning is still ours. Not to consume, but to claim. With agency, with intention, and with courage. Thank you.